Manifest destiny is defined as America's belief that it was their God-given right to expand from sea to shining sea and promote their ideals of democracy and freedom. It began with the colonists' anger towards the Proclamation Line of 1763. When the government told the colonists not to move west past the Appalachian Mountains, they thought it was really phony because of the threat of Indians. It brought a greater desire for westward expansion. It is like when your parents buy you a car and they say you can't use it because you might crash, even though you got your driver's license. The Revolutionary War for the colonies granted them their freedom. So after, as a new country with new ideals, they were able to begin promoting democratic values and rule themselves the way they wanted without influence from the British. Holden is almost like America in that he battled against the phony teachers and students at Pensy. When he left the school, he was also declaring his freedom that he felt he was entitled to. The next big step in Manifest Destiny was the Louisiana Purchase. It doubled the size of the country and invited settlers to move anywhere west of the Mississippi River. Legislations like the Homestead Act encouraged settlers to move west and build structures, but it was phony because frontier life was not actually how it was portrayed. It's almost like going through the awkward stage in your teenage years when you don't really know what to do or what you like. The farmers ventured out thinking they knew what they were doing, but the soil wasn't fertile, environmental conditions were harsh, and many families actually had to move back to the east. In high school, life seems like it would be really great, but you end up being awkward and pimply and feeling like you don't belong. Then after the Mexican-American War, with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, the U.S. acquired the Mexican Cession. Later, after this, they also annexed the Lone Star of Texas. Texas is the only state in the U.S. that became its own country before becoming a U.S. state. They're known for their strong independent values like many want to be when they're in high school and defying against their parents. Gold was discovered in the West, and with that came a new rush of settlers wanting to seek their fortune. The government was advocating for expansion from coast to coast. People left their homes in the East with hopes of finding gold and achieving the American dream like Holden when he left Pensy and dreamed of what he would accomplish in his life. People who weren't making it in the East left in hope of a better life, just like Holden after he failed from his fourth school. Settlers traveled on the Oregon Trail and faced hardships like disease, starvation, and natural barriers. It made it more difficult for them to reach their destination. Holden was venturing through New York City, and he also faced hardships like weather and lack of nutrition and his own psychological problems. He traveled on his own Oregon Trail and imagined a more genuine and less phony way of life. The idea of manifest destiny ended with the start of the Civil War. The government was dealing with its own internal conflicts, and so they could no longer focus on expanding, especially now that the U.S. spread from sea to shining sea. Sometimes part of growing up is making sacrifices to focus on what was more important, like going to sports practice or studying for your SATs. Holden, at one point or another, was going to have to realize that he had problems and will need to work to fix them instead of avoiding them. The mark of the immature man is that he wants to die nobly for a cause, while the mark of the mature man is that he wants to live humbly for one. Holden is trying to be a hero and imagining himself as one, but sometimes it's better to focus on what will be more important in the long run. After the Civil War, William Seward purchased Alaska from Russia in 1867 and was condemned for it because post-Civil War society thought that $7.2 million was way too expensive for a useless piece of land. They called it Seward's folly. Hawaii was annexed in 1900 and became the 50th state in 1959. Later, oil was found in Alaska and increased its value immensely, while Hawaii was used for its sugar and natural resources. The U.S. took great risks in acquiring these territories because they might have been completely useless and a setback for the country, but they were rewarded for their risk-taking with valuable commodities. Taking risks is a part of life and is necessary to be successful. Sometimes you need to reach for the gold ring. If you fall, but you should still try. Alaska and Hawaii were America's gold rings. America was discovering itself and working out its issues during the time of Manifest Destiny. It was more respected by other countries and asserted its power in the world. This was like Holden on his own journey, or anyone finding themselves during their teenage years, where most people discover their true potentials during difficult and confusing times. The United States during Manifest Destiny, Holden, and basically any teenager are expected to act like adults, but are treated as children. But sooner or later, we all discover our true selves and wonder why we were ever confused.